Thank you all. I changed my title, as you can see, so forgive me for that. But I want to give my thanks to Rosa, to Francesca, and the other Denise, and their colleagues who organized this event. It's an honor to be here to speak briefly about the archives of Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown. For those of you who know me, the last thing I want to do is fill your heads with facts and figures about what is in the collection of Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown. Archival description is a key to scholarly access, and I do not intend to diminish the value of this work. Rather, it is my interest in taking you into the minds of interesting people as they actively engage in, or is it energized by doing interesting things. At the Weizmann School of Design at Penn, we actively use our collection in teaching students architecture and landscape. I always stress the notion of an individual thinking through what makes something good, and then to think about and to think through what makes something really good, and to delve in to how they go about understanding the subtleties and nuance of making such a distinction, and how they choose or not choose what comes next. The tools of design or representation are important here. Drawing, modeling, travel, research, how collaborators are chosen are all facets of this. At the Architectural Archives, we do this through tabletop tours where I spread things out on the table and I tell a story like this with many different facets. So on this occasion, celebrating the life of Bob Venturi just a few days before the centenary of his birth in 1925, and in reflecting on the larger work and collaborations of Venturi and Scott Brown, let me give you a little demonstration. An aside, my original title, Clay and Paper, Film, and the Ephemeral Moment, remains my topic, although this title, Picnic on the Strip, as you will see, demanded use. Okay. Here are two of the best known photos of Robert Venturi and Denise Scott Brown. It's a portrait of a couple some months before their marriage, and it's Bob Venturi's first visit to Las Vegas. Denise had made hers a few years prior in 1965. She takes the photo of him and vice versa, he of her. It's November 1966. Often when these photos are published, they are shown as a pair, and equally, they are cropped somehow, like I'm showing you now, to roughly equalize the pairing. This represents how we've come to see these images with the passage of time, to focus in on these individuals at an important moment in their lives together. Clearly, selections have been made, a story is being told. But this is not how these views were initially framed. In fact, these two views are part of Denise Scott Brown's 35mm slide collection, comprising approximately 12,000 views taken by Denise between 1953 and sometime in the 1970s. When women get married, their ability to go off and wander and explore the landscape, especially when they have children, gets diminished. So with the birth of their son, Jimmy, the rapidity of photography diminishes. Okay. I've recently begun the process of organizing the originals, and at Denise's request, we are reassociating images that had been pulled out of order or removed from her organizational system for various purposes by her or others over time. Because many of the slides remain in original mounts, it was possible to resequence the slides into original roles. What I'm about to show you is one such effort, and there are many fascinating sequences to be explored. Perhaps one of the reasons Denise wanted this work done is that this collection is, without question, her work. It was started in 1953 when she purchased her first camera at a shop in Johannesburg, and built up over the next 20 years, beginning with travel in Europe, at first independently. The earliest dated photographs views are of Holland, taken in the spring of '54, the ceiling of Berlaga's stock exchange among them. And later with her first husband, Robert Scott Brown, in 1955 to '57 throughout Europe. Together, the Scott Browns made a special effort to photograph their native South Africa in 1957-58 when they returned home before coming to America, because they had regretted not having shots to share with their British and Italian colleagues and wanted to have a resource when they arrived in America. Denise Scott Brown's collection, however, grew exponentially after Robert Scott Brown's tragic death in the summer of 1959. With her entry into teaching, slides were one way that she elaborated the process of looking and understanding places, the form, forces, and functions that evolved into the learning from studios. Denise kept her slides in an old wooden card catalog, a cast-off of the cataloging systems that were being modernized. It is one of a pair. The other one, as it happens, contains her shoes. Walking, our connection to the ground, most literally, is referenced in her making of photography and her use of photography. We'll come back to this in a moment. Here are the pair of original slides as one can see. Hold on. Here are the pair of original slides, and you can see one remains in its original mount, slide number 9 of 12. With Denise's annotation, LV, Bob, rear, picnic. The other, the view of Denise, has been remounted, so we are missing some of the original content or context that would be apparent on the mount, but we have the label LV picnic Denise has been transferred, we hope, as it was originally written on the original. We find that these 2 slides were taken along with 10 others. Here is a sequence of 12 views, 10 of which survive. 2, number 3 and number 11, are not currently located, but I promise you I will keep looking. And one needs to look in particular ways to find such things, but that's a whole other talk. However, the sequence is remarkably intact, and with existing evidence, we can step into that ephemeral moment. And just looking at the slide titles, LV Picnic, LV Aladdin Picnic, LV Picnic Aladdin, LV Chimneys, LV Picnic Bob, etc., etc. Besides LV, the one word that stands out is picnic. Denise Scott Brown's choice of words as labels or categorization for this body of work is significant. Other instances in her collection, Philadelphia oil, LA pylons, are among the ways that she shorthanded what she was seeing or her perspective or where her interests lie. Here's a close-up of shot number 1, looking north towards the dunes, Aladdin and Caesar's Palace hotels in the distance. The sense of the desert is very much in the foreground. Bracketing the shot is the next one, and I'll go back and forth between these 2. The first one, you get a little bit of bleed, because if you're very frugal with your photography, you try to get as many shots into your roll of 12 or 24 or 36. Sometimes this happens. Okay. So in slide 6, there's more ground. In slide 7, there's a slight bit more sky, and we will see this pattern repeated. This grounding relates to the proper metering of light for the camera, and it's to get the shadows right. You point downwards when you meter. Here, though, the impulse to start with the ground plane, I think, is interesting. The first is taken from a standing position, and the second, she has kneeled down a bit and maybe taken a step back or 2. Slide number 3 is missing, so to be continued. Here's slide number 4. So she's pivoted a bit to the northeast, and to face the Aladdin Casino and its magnificent sign, a photo of which taken by Denise forms the cover image of a 1968 issue of Architectural Forum. The hotel had only just opened that April. Here, color is of interest. The red car, the red interior of the car ties to the color of the sign. The Tanya billboard on the cover of the Learning from Las Vegas book, first edition, resonates with the taxi. Again, there's a bracketing of shots. So between 4 and 5, we see Denise staying low to the ground here, perhaps kneeling. Number 4 with a bit more ground. Number 5 with just a slight bit more sky. The silver Dodge Dart 270 coupe is visible here. It's a rental car, no doubt. The doors are left ajar, perhaps for a fast getaway. Picnic. If they are planning to stay, if they are planning to lay out a blanket and eat a meal in this picturesque landscape, why leave the doors open? Number 6. Denise, perhaps walking a bit to the west, frames a view of the strip with the ruin of a house in the foreground. The chimney is all that stands among the burnt remains. Here, there are echoes of Bob and Denise's shared interest with ruins that they shared with the architect Louis Kahn. Is this the intended location for their picnic? Let me step back and out of sequence of the slides briefly to show you an aerial view of this area of the strip taken in 1966 for the Las Vegas Visitors Bureau. We see the Aladdin at left, the dunes at bottom, and the site of the house ruin where the picnic occurred. Number 7 in sequence, Denise catches a view of Bob in profile, seeming to evade the camera, to shy away. Did he not want his photo taken? Number 8, Bob now posed, is that even the right word? Facing the camera, and in the subsequent view, his back is to the camera. Who decided that he'd make the turn? Was this a continuation of that shying away? Was it being playful? And just as an aside, when I showed this image to Denise a few years back, she asked me if it had been photoshopped. So she herself had forgotten that she had created this image of Bob facing the camera because this version had become so dominant in not just our understanding of this pair of images, but perhaps in her own. Okay. And again, you see how there's slightly more ground and then slightly more sky. And then here, by shooting from this low position, Bob, the chimney, the casinos, all in the distance, all stand at the same height. The desert floor is strongly present, and see how Bob's shadow almost disappears, and how this has an effect of flattening out the picture plane. The ambiguity of scales contributes to the interest in this view. 10 and 11. Denise hands the camera off to Bob. She poses, hands on her hip facing the camera, a powerful, assertive presence to the enigmatic Venturi. In Bob's hand, the camera drifts upward. There is much more sky to be seen and little of the desert. Loftiness of the clouds is dominant. These clouds are what often get cropped out of this image when paired with the one Denise took of Bob. 11. We don't have this view. Did Denise turn to do the ambiguous shot? We don't know what that view is, but it's probably what came next. So it makes us really curious about this little lost piece of history. And then number 12. This is the final view of the set. We see Bob behind the wheel. The motor is running, and they are ready to make their getaway. Denise delays to take one more shot. The car door open, revealing a glimpse of the red interior brightly lit by the sun. Bob, the enigmatic one, profiled in shadow. This picnic on the strip was not, in a literal sense, about conventional definitions. Their fast-paced getaway suggests otherwise. No food, no blanket, no lingering under the shade of an old oak tree. But a feast was had. For Bob Venturi and Denise Scott Brown, we get a glimpse into their creative dynamics, their playful and insightful use of words, a feast for the mind and the imagination. We see Denise with the camera as a willing tool, just about done, in her hands, and the way that she animates the ground, the place upon which she stands. For us as individuals who, for various reasons, engage with their archives, we also get a feast. Only our picnic is to be had at the archives, and remember, we allow no food or drink there. Buon appetito.